So we continue our season of Lent, and we will be reading from Isaiah a lot in this season. Isaiah is prophecies, that speak of this Messiah figure and what he's going to accomplish. And it becomes a lot more interesting when you realize that, Isaiah obviously never meets Jesus. But he speaks of him and of the role that a Messiah will have. And Israel actually had a sense of there could be multiple Messiahs, right? But we see this is completely fulfilled in Jesus, all these roles that the Messiah or Messiahs would have, that Christ accomplishes them. So that's how we see this in the Catholic Church. And so Isaiah proclaims that we are to turn to God. This is a matter that's very serious and important. It's being announced, trumpet, all that kind of stuff. And then it goes back into some of the language we heard on Ash Wednesday as it described the kind of things that we tend to do that take away from any penance we're practicing. We're fighting with each other and all that kind of stuff, and being cruel. And so, the penances that we undertake as a church and the ones that we individually discern during Lent are really meant to draw us inward, to help us to or maybe in a sense to turn away from ourselves, in a certain sense to turn toward the Lord, but to stop blaming everyone else for the problems in our lives, which is what we tend to do, right? It's always other people's fault. Everything's always someone else's fault. And so this season asks us to become deeper, become more mature, become more spiritual, and to think about those that we've hurt, those that we need to reconcile with, and also those that we don't necessarily owe anything to in justice, like people we have offended or hurt or driven away from Jesus, maybe even, but people that represents an opportunity for us to serve others, right? It mentions at the end of the reading works of charity, almsgiving, volunteering at a soup kitchen, for example, all these kind of things. There's so many ways that we can turn toward others in this season. That's one of the things I just love about Lent. I look at my own little observances for Lent, and these are things that can help me be healthier, be better, but also help me to have more of a mind toward others. And so we really don't want to miss out on the qualities of the season that we can take on. And we don't want to miss out on these graces. They're so abundant in this time. We look at our gospel today, and sometimes the gospel and the first reading kind of seem to oppose, and you'll get that sometimes. And so here we see this reading from Matthew chapter 9, and the disciples of John the Baptist are kind of confronting the disciples of Jesus. And so it's like the disciples versus the disciples, and they say that we're fasting, we're doing all that, and your people are not. And then Jesus gets involved, and he says this kind of mysterious thing about the wedding guest and the bridegroom. And it's interesting, right? And so this language of Jesus as the bridegroom, right? And if he's the groom, there must be a bride, obviously. And the bride is, for us, it's the church. It's us, the people of the new Israel that are redeemed. And Christ's words here are particularly notable because if this is what he says at this point, very early in his ministry, then Jesus is already describing his whole mission after his incarnation as this one of redemption, right? That Jesus is the Redeemer. And he comes to us, he comes to us to redeem his people, the new Israel. And so my encouragement to you as we begin this season of Lent is to really listen to the readings that we encounter. Remember that every liturgy of Lent is proper to that day. We're not going to have this liturgy again for another year. Tomorrow, same thing. It'll be a proper liturgy. And the readings or all that stuff are just for that day. So allow it to speak to you. Go back to these texts, continue to pray with them. And I would say especially ask God, what does he want to tell you today? On this day, as we begin this, as it says, campaign of Christian service. What is the Holy Spirit inviting you to understand and to do as we celebrate this day of our Lenten season of 2024?